Hello and welcome back to my little corner of the world. In this second module, I want to talk more about politics, the new forms of politics, the new forms in which we participate in political communication, having our voices heard, but also collaborate, coordinate, and make decisions together in some cases. When I talk about politics, I don't only talk about institutional politics, the traditional form of politics that's done by professional politicians, but the ways in which social media enables different forms of civic participation, forms of organization, collaboration, and communication about serious issues. So I'll be asking the question to how media enables politicians to reach the public, but also how the public can interact with politicians, how themselves can organize and cooperate to solve their problems, or maybe someone else's problems, and putting more emphasis on the non-institutional, the non-traditional forms of political communication. In Bennett's words, participation that emerges outside of conventional institutional structures. So the way Bennett talks about personalized politics, he introduces this concept of an individually expressive personal action frames, or maybe in other words, for collective action, but through individuals expressing themselves, joining conversations, and exchanging knowledge, opinions, or ideas through online memes. So these are new forms of political participation. These are new languages for political participation. In some cases, it's the younger generations who come up with new ways of expressing possibilities for political participation. Here's another example that handles the corona crisis and China. For those who have not seen the reference to Winnie the Pooh, it actually comes from another online phenomenon, another meme phenomenon, which was about finding visual similarities between China's President Xi and the famous character Winnie the Pooh, which eventually led to China banning the movies of Winnie the Pooh. Here are some other examples. So these individually expressive action frames, why are they important? One example of that is from the US. You may remember the Standing Rock events where a group of Native Americans started demonstrating because the nation state was taking control of their land. But then again, they wanted to protect their water, they wanted to protect their environment, and of course their traditional living spaces, which turned into a physical confrontation. For a long time, people have been demonstrating there, but also created a very interesting and highly effective form of online protest, which spread globally. If you look at the Facebook post just about me up there, the Martin County Sheriff's Department has been using Facebook to check-ins to find who is at Standing Rock in order to target them. So water protectors are calling on everyone to check in at Standing Rock on Facebook to overwhelm and confuse them. This concrete action that we can do without leaving our homes, that can protect people who are putting their body and well-being on the line. Will you join me in Standing Rock? In a very short amount of time, over 1 million Facebook users, including myself, from Denmark, have checked in to Standing Rock. We don't really know if the practical purpose was accomplished. We don't know if we confused the police or saved some people. But what we do know is this idea, this engagement brought us together and gave us the perspective that over 1 million of us can actually join something that matters. We have seen examples of this also in this class by looking at the metoo movement, for instance, the way in which Sherry Turkle talks about this feeling that no one is listening to me, and the way in which media creates new connections, new bonds, to avoid this feeling, or at least to reach other people who do have similar problems or similar thoughts. Me Too was an amazing example of how this one concept, this one idea could reach and shake the whole political structures, even industries like the Hollywood entertainment industry and many others, which also spread to the European Parliament and many other political institutions. So in many ways, we have seen that these movements have changed certain things, at least have impacted the ways we think about certain issues, such as gender discrimination and harassment. And Bennett says these new types of collective actions, they're less like conventional movements. And by conventional movements, again, I mean political parties, movements that require a more explicit type of membership or dedication. leaders, some sort of an organizational structure, some sort of a collective identity frame. Instead, he says these are individualized action frames. These are individualized collectives where large numbers of people, millions in some cases, join in these activities, but they're loosely coordinated. There is no central decision-making body, but it's based on more personal connections, emotional identifications, and the ways in which we define ourselves, we position ourselves according to this movement, which also defines the ways we want to participate in it, whether anonymously or non-anonymously. A very interesting case about this individual collective active frames is from Iran. This one example, this group or page, both group and the page actually, is called My Stealthy Freedom. It is a Facebook page for Iranian women to find each other and share pictures of themselves not wearing the obligatory hijab in public spaces, taking their pictures and sharing it with other women to encourage them to do the same. What they're technically doing is breaking the law, but also demonstrating with others as a part of not an organization, not a party, but individuals who are co-creating a campaign together. And in Bennett's words, the idea of personalized politics gives us a framework for understanding these type of individualized collective action. Here are some examples from these women's posts. There are hundreds, maybe thousands of them, but how they're coordinated through digital media. And without digital media, how these individual contributions may not have added up to an actual political, a global movement of more than 1 million people demonstrating and trying to change the policy about how women can be and behave in public spaces in Iran. So Bennett talks about diversity, inclusiveness, tolerance of these different viewpoints, the crowdsourcing in general being one of the key figures in how these political movements spread, and participation being channeled through social networks when people can tell stories, not just share pictures, not just vote in a poll, but actually share stories and experiences with each other. Bennett also talks about consumers, and he claims that consumer practices also create some sort of a political activity if we communicate about our concerns about different companies. I have actually done a research project at Roskilde University about the Colin Kaepernick ad by Nike and the memes that are produced by it. Just two examples from two different ends of the political spectrum. But the first example you see on top is criticizing about using child labor, using slave labor, or very difficult conditions for their laborers during production, whereas the one down is more nationalistic, more sort of patriotic way of looking at things, and he was criticizing Colin Kaepernick. So several types of engaging with a message, several forms of sending a political message to the company and every other people. And all of these different memes and pictures have received tens of thousands of comments and engagements. And Bennett says political participation in this picture reflects a more flexible, a large scale, and surprisingly stable network of action. And this action can be targeting many different types of areas and powers in politics. This one example is from 2012 when Wikipedia, along with several large-scale websites, locked down and turned their pages to black, asking people to participate into the action to stop these legislations against free speech. And as we have discussed in the first discussion, the issue of power and politics and elites and politicians versus citizens, this is, in these complicated days after the coronavirus crisis, of course, is complicated and confusing. But I found this example, a recent one from Finland, where I think that the relationship between politicians and the citizens themselves online is embodied in a very effective way. So Finland is apparently tapping into social media influencers during the crisis to inform other people. They're working with a company called Ping Helsinki. The CEO of this company is saying, if we can get a high school student with around 1,000 followers to share information, that actually is valuable too. So what is it that media does to politics? Three specific aspects of what is happening are all very important. First of all, politicians are communicating with citizens. They're finding new, more personal ways to engage people. Citizens are communicating with political institutions in different ways, making their voices heard more effectively and having conversations about problems. And last but not least, people can mobilize each other, and they can organize, they can achieve political goals, and they can collectively agree or discuss something and make decisions about how to act. So to begin with, mainstream politicians, mainstream institutions, as Bennett is saying, they're also trying to find personalized appeals. They're trying to grow their reach to voters, to have a more personalized face and identity that touches the ordinary person in their homes. This example is from Mette Frederiksen, the Prime Minister of Denmark. It's a very recent example. When she posted a personal video of herself with her daughter singing at home, washing dishes under the lockdown, which obviously is also trying to give the message, stay home. The next example is from a Social Democratic Parliament member, Dan Jørgensen. Dan Jørgensen himself is one of the popular faces of the party. He's been on television doing a lot of formal interviews and public speeches and everything. But this video he has done was an online response to Fox News about a specific piece they have done about Denmark.
There's something rotten in Denmark.
Fox News host Trish Regan has made a story in which she compares Denmark to Venezuela.
Denmark, like Venezuela, has stripped people of their opportunities.
Okay, let's just clarify a few things. Trish, you're wrong.
School's free. University's free. That's lovely.
Actually, it is.
But you see, not only is school free, they actually pay you. Not bad, eh?
That is not bad. That means that it's not the size of your parents' bank account that decides whether or not you get an education. It's your hard work, it's your talent, it's your motivation.
Well, you know what happens then? Nobody graduates from school, they just stay in school.
And as we can see in this video, Dan Jørgensen is not only talking, but also using several visuals with the internet aesthetic, like emojis and some mashups of different images, having the background music in a short video. Not only that, but this video shows us how globalization and the new international politics are adapting to social media, why politicians need to make these kind of presentations on social media instead of a traditional TV interview, for instance. How political messages are now also part of the viral phenomena, because we need to think about why this spreads, where it spreads, to whom the politician is trying to have this personalized appeal. Another example from Denmark is Özlem Cekic, an immigrant origin parliament member who is also a Muslim and who is a woman. She is often getting hate speech, discriminatory messages, even threats on social media about her identity and her political involvement in Denmark. As a result of which, she created this campaign, what she calls Dialogue Coffee, where she meets with people face to face, people who send her hate messages, people who send her threats, and these very insensitive generalization and stereotypes about who she is and what she represents. She meets with them in their own houses, have a cup of coffee, and talks with them and try to see what it is that digital media lacks. What is it that face-to-face communication can add to a political conflict such as this one?
It's not so nice to be called a monkey.
I'm really not a racist. I'm the opposite.
You write that I should go home.
Those who are born here, we have to take care about.
I am home.
Så skriver du, fordi jeg hader alt, hvad du og dine artsfæller står for. Vi ønsker jo en verden uden muslimer. En fredelig verden uden jeres svin til at ødelægge alle vores værdier.
Men det var faktisk ment som en øjenåbner.
Din klamme
fordi jeg mener,
skaddyr, kaldte du mig.
jeg mener, at hvis man er så faktaresistent, som du er, og overhovedet ikke kan forholde sig til, hvad det egentlig er, der er ved at ske,
A lighter and funnier example from Sweden. This doesn't exist anymore, but for 7 years, Sweden has given the control of its official Twitter account @Sweden to a citizen of Sweden for the whole week. That person would be responsible of talking on behalf of Sweden. And the last example again is from Denmark about this personal appeal and how it could turn a backlash. This is Inger Støjberg, who was in the previous parliament the Minister for Integration, who is in charge of all the immigrants in Denmark mainly. And she is a right-wing, quite radically right-wing politician. And she openly said that she wants to make it difficult for immigrants and refugees to be in Denmark, to live and stay or come to Denmark. So one day she decided to post this picture. This is the Google translation of what she said. She said, "Today I got the 50th amendment to tighten immigration controls ratified. This needs celebrating." Well, for her, this might be a reason to celebrate and share this with people, with like-minded people who also don't want immigrants in Denmark. But as you may imagine, this has turned into a whole new type of shitstorm for her that she had to deal with because people found it very insensitive, but also unprofessional and unthoughtful. There were memes created about her. There were polls, social media polls. This one, for instance, asked, should she still be the Minister of Integration after this? And the Red Cross have created their own campaign using her cake joke in a way to turn it upside down and turning into a campaign to collect donations. You might remember the spreadable media concept about how an idea or content spreads, and it changes as it spreads, and it turns into some new messages. It finds itself in new contexts, and it becomes part of new types of conversations. This actually is a great example of this and how Inger Støjberg's original message has turned into many different types of political action. The continuation of that was an actual campaign, an online campaign, which also went relatively viral. This was called "Give 1 kroner for each amendment for tightening the immigration policy." So all in all, we are seeing this give and take, this sort of more interactive and much more dynamic relationship between politicians, citizens, and politics in general. In the next module, we'll continue talking about this, but we'll focus more on environmental and social moments. And we'll be asking ourselves the question that Bennett is asking. Can we, by being online together and acting online together, can make an actual impact? There will be a TED Talk by Zeynep Tüpekçi called "Online Social Change, Easy to Organize, Hard to Win," where she asks the question, as digital technology makes things easier for moments, or faster, more efficient, more intelligent, more adaptable, so why haven't successful outcomes become more likely? Why are we still struggling to change the relationships of power, even though we have all the connective tools that we possibly may need? And as a part of next week's module, I also want to talk a little bit about what happened in Turkey during the Gezi protests in 2013, where hundreds of thousands of people were on the streets for about a month or several weeks, where social media and digital technology was one of the key connectors between people who are organizing, informing, and looking out for each other. But for now, I will close this presentation. Thank you for listening and stay safe. Please go to the module and check out the discussions. One of the discussions will be led by students in this class, so that will be just like what we have done in class. Please make sure that you comment and respond to the threads there so we can have a conversation. Thank you. Stay safe.